The morning sun streams into the room as our main character pushes himself out of bed. Just another peaceful start to the day, or so it seems. But then it hits him, a sudden, jarring realization. His eyes snap open in utter shock, completely lost and confused by his new reality. Panel 1 and 2. He rushes to the window, and the view outside confirms his worst fears. It's a world he recognizes, but one he should only be seeing on a screen. The crushing realization finally hits him. Am I inside the game I was playing? But here's the real twist. This isn't day one. This whole insane situation actually began 3 years ago, on the day he first possessed this character. The name of the game he was trapped in was Heroic Legend of Arhin. And despite the title, this game wasn't some noble adventure. It was known for being brutally difficult. The setting was an academy, but it was just a stage for non-stop dangerous events, cursed magic, and a constant barrage of world-ending incidents. Basically, a total nightmare. The stakes in this game were absolutely insane. It wasn't just about fighting a few monsters. The story casually threw in full-blown, world-ending scenarios, including zombie apocalypses. Yeah, the scale was massive. So, you'd expect our guy to be terrified, right? Well, think again. He's over here with a huge, carefree smile, acting like it's all good. The reason he's so confident is that he knows he's not the hero of this story. He's just Cornlock, a literal level 1 NPC whose only role is to be the guy who gets saved in a beginner quest. His logic is simple. As long as the story follows the game script, the real main character will handle all the apocalypses and save the day. He can just chill. So with his safety basically guaranteed by the plot, he decides to go find this legendary hero, a guy named Park Seho, who's on the fast track to becoming rich and famous. While trying to find the game's starting point, Cornlock spots a suspicious-looking guy in all black. The dude is just sitting there, muttering to himself about sweet potatoes, and then, even weirder, he mentions Sprite. This immediately sets off huge alarm bells. Cornlock's meta-knowledge kicks in, because there is no such thing as Sprite in this game's world. He instantly realizes this dude isn't a normal NPC. And just like that, the new guy goes full edgelord mode, declaring that he's going to live only for himself. His main goal from now on is pure, ruthless efficiency. This guy is definitely another player, and his vibe is way more intense. Before this new guy can continue his villain monologue, Cornlock suddenly grabs his hand, stopping him dead in his tracks. In a moment of sheer panic, Cornlock blurts out that he's a player too. And this is where we get the biggest plot twist yet. This edgelord efficiency freak is none other than Park Seho, the original main character. Turns out, he's also just a regular person who possessed a game character. But Park Seho isn't happy about finding someone for his world. Instead, he gets dead serious, a menacing aura flaring up around him. He looks down at Cornlock and begins to explain the one critical difference between the two of them. The critical difference, Park Seho explains, is that he was given a special privilege that only player characters receive. A personal stat window. But here's the hilarious part. The guy who possessed the super powerful main character has absolutely no idea how to play the game. He's a complete and total newbie. And that's where our guy Cornlock steps in. He immediately switches into full-on coach mode, telling Seho exactly where to put his stats and giving him a critical heads-up about an important skill book in the next story quest. Cornlock begins to lay out his credentials. He hasn't just played this game before. He's played through all the stories, and he knows every single possible route. He's not just some casual player. He's a stone-cold pro at Heroic Legend of Arhin. This is where his real plan comes into focus. He knows that for a clueless main character like Seho, having a pro gamer guiding him isn't just helpful. It's a massive, game-breaking advantage. And right on cue, as if summoned by the plot itself, the first boss of the tutorial stage appears, a massive, demonic hellhound ready to attack. The sudden ambush completely shatters Cornlock's cool guy act, and both he and Seho are caught totally off guard by the monster. But this is exactly what Cornlock was counting on. While he's freaking out, Park Seho instinctively steps up, readying his staff and preparing to unleash some serious magic to handle the threat. After effortlessly dealing with the monster, Seho looks back with a smug grin as his dark energy settles down. He casually asks Cornlock, "You okay?" This is when Cornlock realizes the massive potential of their situation. A new plan starts forming in his mind, centered on the fact that he possesses all the critical information about the game. And Seho, on the other hand, has the overpowered stat window and the player system. It's the perfect combination, the brains and the brawn, the pro gamer and the clueless but powerful main character. And this new partnership was effective. With Seho handling the big picture with his player powers, Cornlock could focus on the details, using his insider knowledge of the game to strike at the enemy's critical weak points and deliver the final, decisive blow. Looking back on that time, Cornlock thought they were the perfect duo. With Seho by his side, he truly believed that their success was guaranteed. With his knowledge and Seho's power, they were able to accomplish incredible things. They saved countless people, stopped world-ending threats. And Cornlock truly believed that together, they could find a way to clear the game and finally return home to Earth. Everything seemed to be going perfectly according to his plan. But looking back on it all, Cornlock admits there was one thing he was deeply disappointed about. His one big disappointment had nothing to do with the quests or the danger. No, it was about the original game itself. A huge part of its charm was its mix of intense fantasy action, and its huge roster of beautiful and diverse heroines that you could actually romance. The game was supposed to be part action RPG, part dating simulator. So what was his ultimate disappointment? It's the fact that since he arrived in this world, his entire party has been filled with nothing but dudes. He was trapped in a fantasy dating sim with absolutely no girls. The reason for this all-male party was Park Seho himself. For some reason, he actively avoided getting involved with any of the female characters, only recruiting them when it was absolutely necessary for a quest. Naturally, Cornlock was constantly complaining about this. He was so focused on being stuck with a bunch of gross, sweaty guys that he couldn't see the bigger picture. And that was his mistake. Looking back, he knows this was the exact moment he should have realized things were going off the rails. Because while they were busy, the Sword Emperor's granddaughter, a key heroine, was killed before she ever even made it to the academy. And that was just the beginning. The next major red flag was when the final boss of the game's first stage, a character named Mariette, suddenly went missing before they could even fight her. After that, the story he knew began to completely unravel. This led to a series of mysterious disappearances, unsolved murders, and a plot that was straying further and further from the game he had mastered. And the true cause of all this chaos was one single, unpredictable variable: the way Park Seho himself thought and acted, which was completely different from the original hero of the game. The original hero was a typical, hot-blooded protagonist, but the new Park Seho's personality was calm, cold, and efficient. And on the other hand, you had Cornlock's own true personality, which was cunning, selfish, and always scheming for his own benefit. Cornlock knows now that he should have been more suspicious back then, but that's all in the past. Snapping back to the present day, his pro-gamer knowledge fails him completely. He's utterly confused, with no idea what's happening. To understand his confusion, we have to know how he got here. He'd gotten suspicious of Park Seho constantly sneaking out at night, so he decided to follow him, leading him to a secret underground facility he never knew existed. And it's down in this hidden area that he finds something impossible. He discovers a relic belonging to Mariette Dunaleff, one of the game's most important heroines. This makes zero sense to Cornlock. Mariette was the key character who went missing years ago, the one neither of them ever got to meet. So why in the world is her unique hidden item just sitting here in a display case? As he looks around the massive hall, lined with countless display cases, a horrifying realization dawns on him. This isn't just a secret room. It's a physical manifestation of Park Seho's personal inventory. And it keeps getting worse. He finds a unique weapon belonging to another main heroine, Alicia, who also mysteriously disappeared years ago. The evidence starts to pile up, confirming a terrifying pattern. And it's not just the items of missing heroines. The room is filled with all kinds of rare weapons and hidden pieces. Park Seo has been secretly hoarding an entire arsenal of powerful items. His blood runs cold as he finally puts it all together. These aren't just random rare items. This is a collection of gear from every single character who mysteriously went missing as they progressed through the game. But Park Seo hasn't just been collecting their items. As Cornlock ventures deeper into the darkness of the secret lab, he finds something else, something far more horrifying. He's been collecting the heroines themselves. Floating in some kind of stasis pod is one of the missing women, alive and trapped here this entire time. At this moment, Cornlock realizes Park Seo isn't just a player who went off script. He's a monster. He can't believe what he's seeing. It's undoubtedly Mariette Dunaleff, the first stage boss, the woman who was supposed to have vanished without a trace all those years ago. And just as the weight of this horrifying discovery comes crashing down, he realizes he's not alone. He's been so focused on the lab that he didn't notice Park Seo was right there. He's been caught. With a cold, dead look in his visible eye, Park Seo confronts him. He doesn't sound surprised. He sounds furious. He looks at Cornlock and asks one simple, terrifying question. Why are you here? Backed into a corner, Cornlock confronts Seo directly, calling him out on the lie he told years ago about losing Mariette. But Seo's response is terrifyingly casual. He just shrugs it off, saying she's a demon anyway. He then reveals the shocking truth. Mariette is an incredibly powerful elder-class vampire. And to a guy like Seo, that means her blood is a valuable resource that shouldn't be wasted. He looks at this horrifying setup and explains that he's not being evil. In his own twisted mind, by trapping her and harvesting her blood, he's simply being efficient. Hearing this twisted logic, Cornlock finally snaps. All his fear and confusion boils over into pure rage as he screams at Seo, desperately demanding to know why. But Seo just looks down on him with contempt. He calmly explains that everything he does is for one single purpose: to progress the story in the most efficient way possible. Claiming Cornlock's heroic route is just too frustrating. He then completely tears into Cornlock's good guy strategy, criticizing him for trying to save everyone, for refusing to kill annoying characters, and for protecting NPCs without getting any benefit. This is the moment their two opposing philosophies completely collide. As Seo continues to lecture him on his efficient methods, Cornlock's own arrogant words from the very beginning come back to haunt him. And in that instant, he finally understands. Park Seo lied to him from the start. The entire foundation of their partnership was a complete sham. This guy was never a newbie who needed a guide. Utterly horrified, Cornlock starts to ask the real question. Just how many times have you lived this life? But Seo's response is the most chilling thing he could have said. He casually acts like he's lost count, confirming Cornlock's worst fear. This isn't Seo's first playthrough, and Cornlock has been nothing but a pawn in his latest, most efficient run. And then Seo drops the most chilling bombshell yet. He casually mentions that with just 3 more kills, his running total will hit an even 100,000. At this point, Cornlock knows for sure this guy isn't human anymore. Losing it completely, Cornlock grabs him by the collar and screams that he's a monster. But Seo is completely unfazed, telling him to wake up. He tries to justify his actions by saying they're all just NPCs and that Cornlock has killed people too. But Cornlock fires back, screaming that there's a world of difference between them. The people he killed were unredeemable villains who were actively trying to destroy everything. He had a reason. Seo just has an excuse. But this is where Cornlock, the pro gamer, finds the fatal flaw in Seo's argument. He scoffs at his obsession with efficiency and frustration. He starts listing all of Seo's actions that make no sense from an efficiency standpoint. Like, why would a mage take a knight's unique weapon? Or why go through all the trouble of setting up this complicated vampire blood farm when regular elixirs work just fine? And then, Cornlock understands the real, twisted reason. He screams at Seo, asking why he would do all this inefficient nonsense just to create this farm. Seo's creepy, Broken smile says it all. His true goal was never about clearing the game efficiently. And with that, Cornlock says the quiet part out loud. The real reason for all of Seho's actions. It was never about efficiency. He just wanted a safe world where he could find a sandbag for his twisted, sociopathic tendencies. Cornlock's words clearly hit a nerve. All of Seho's cold, calculating composure shatters in an instant, and he retaliates with a violent, powerful blow. Crashing into one of the stasis pods, Cornlock is left bloody and beaten. Having completely lost his cool, Seho can only blame Cornlock for pushing him over the edge, unable to handle the fact that his perfect, twisted world has been completely exposed. Seho stands over the beaten Cornlock, not with simple anger, but with a twisted sense of betrayal. He lectures him, saying that after everything he's done for him, Cornlock has no right to talk to him that way. And then we get the final, insane piece of the puzzle. We see Seho's inner monologue, revealing that his real motivation was never about the game. It's a dark, twisted obsession as he thinks to himself that Cornlock should be his everything, his entire world. This obsession finally spills out as pure, possessive rage. He grabs Cornlock and screams at him for not knowing his place and for daring to pay attention to the female heroines, revealing his anger comes from a place of extreme, psychotic jealousy. With a look of pure, unhinged obsession in his glowing eyes, Seho makes a decision. He's done pretending. He declares that he's not going to hold back his true feelings anymore. Cornlock is just completely broken by this revelation. He's totally baffled, unable to process the fact that the cold, calculating regressor he knew is suddenly confessing a psychotic obsession with him. And this is where our pro gamer has a full-blown meltdown. He starts screaming that Seho isn't supposed to be this kind of character, comically complaining that after 199 chapters, Seho is suddenly trying to change the entire genre into a twisted BL story. Seho continues his insane confession, explaining that every single monstrous thing he's done was simply to remove any obstacles that might get in the way of what he sees as their future. And that's when it finally clicks for Cornlock. The real reason why Seho was so insistent on their party being all male, actively avoiding all the heroines. It was to eliminate any potential romantic competition. Seho looks at Cornlock and tells him that while the other men are just for show, he's the only one that he truly loves. As Seho finishes his twisted confession, Cornlock responds in the only way he can think of, with a massive punch to the face and a scream of pure terror. He immediately tries to scramble away, his mind racing with absolute fear. All he can think about is how terrifying Seho is and how he's going to die here without ever even having a girlfriend. But Seho isn't just going to let him go. Completely unfazed by the punch, dark energy swirls and solidifies around his feet, anchoring him to the spot. The escape is over. The dark energy erupts from Seho, instantly shooting out and wrapping around Cornlock, violently yanking him back as he screams in pain. He's completely bound by the energy, totally powerless. All he can do is scream in denial, refusing to accept this new, horrifying reality. Seho calmly walks towards him, his intentions now crystal clear. He looks down at the terrified Cornlock and makes a chilling promise. You can't run, because I'm going to trap you here forever. Looming over the captured and terrified Cornlock, Seho makes his ultimate declaration, his voice dripping with possessive obsession as he simply states, "You're mine." He then tries to explain his insane logic, revealing that after countless lifetimes, he's come to see this entire world as fake. And in this sea of NPCs and programmed events, Cornlock is the only other real thing. But this reasoning brings no comfort to Cornlock. All he can do is scream back in absolute terror, calling Seho exactly what he is, a terrifying, insane bastard. As his power surges, creating a strange digital space around them, Seho announces his endgame. He claims that everything will be over soon, once the final fight is finished. And with a twisted, possessive smirk, he makes his final promise to Cornlock. Once the fight is over, they'll be together forever. Looking around at the glitching digital world, Korenlok realizes the horrifying truth. This isn't just a secret lab. Park Seo has created an entire pocket dimension, a personal plane designed to trap them both. Inside this strange pocket dimension, a system window appears, announcing that the final stage of the game is now opening. Korenlok can only watch as Seo's endgame officially begins. Lying defeated on the shore of this digital sea, Korenlok feels a wave of hopelessness. He knows Seo has always been powerful enough to crush every obstacle, so there's no doubt in his mind that he'll win against the final boss. And that's the real horror of the situation. He knows with absolute certainty that once Seo defeats that final boss, his twisted promise will come true, and he'll be trapped in this world forever. Floating helplessly in Seo's digital world, Korenlok gives up all hope, silently resigning himself to his fate as the final battle rages on somewhere else. He wonders what will become of him, when suddenly a system window appears. But it's not the message he expected. Instead, it's a critical error. Player has died. Challenge failed. As the world around him begins to fall apart, Korenlok can't process what he's seeing. The invincible, overpowered regressor who had planned everything down to the last detail actually lost? The sun streams through the window, and the curtains flutter in the morning breeze. A scene that is peaceful and eerily familiar. Korenlok's eyes snap open and he gasps for air, his heart pounding his chest as the memories of Seo's horrifying obsession and the world's end flash through his mind. He jolts upright in bed, completely panicked. But then it hits him. The horrifying future he just witnessed wasn't a dream. He has returned to the past. He rushes to the window and sees the same view from that very first morning. The proof is undeniable. He's not dead. He has regressed. Looking down his own hands, he realizes he's been sent all the way back to the very first day he came to this world, a full 3 years before the disastrous future he just escaped. With the memories of that horrifying future burning in his mind, Korenlok's fear hardens into cold, unbreakable resolve. He knows what he has to do this time around. He needs to kill him. His mission is no longer just about survival. His one and only goal now is to take down the man who destroyed everything, the regressor Park Seo. This time, Korenlok has to kill an academy player. Now that he's back in the past, Korenlok starts recalling all the red flags he missed the first time around. He remembers the Ration River flooding incident, a disaster where a dam broke during a quest, wiping an entire village off the map. The aftermath was a complete catastrophe. 1,000 water monsters were unleashed on the area, and thousands of innocent people in the town drowned in the resulting chaos. It was a truly horrendous scene of death and destruction. And as Korenlok remembers it now, he recalls exactly how Park Seo reacted in that moment. He laughed. While thousands of people were drowning, Park Seo looked at the tragedy with a huge, psychotic grin and declared that the whole situation was awesome. Back then, Korenlok was completely horrified and confused. He had absolutely no idea why the supposed hero of the story was laughing like a complete maniac. But now, with his knowledge of the future, he understands perfectly. Park Seo didn't see thousands of dead people. He only saw a golden opportunity to monopolize all the experience points from the chaos for himself. The memory of Seo casually talking about reaching his 100,000th kill is burned into his mind. Korenlok knows he's not just dealing with a bad person. He's dealing with a full-blown devil. But this time is different. Fueled by his knowledge of the horrible future, Korenlok runs with a new sense of purpose. He knows that this time, he has a chance to stop him. And here's why. At this point in the timeline, the monstrous Park Seo is just a weak, rank 5 newbie, the same as Korenlok. Their journey to power begins at the Merkaba Academy, and this time, Korenlok plans to beat him to it. Korenlok knows that Seo isn't a monster yet, but he also knows how terrifyingly fast he'll grow once he enters the academy. With the entrance ceremony only 5 days away, he has to make every second count. He remembers it all too well from his past life. As soon as Seo got access to the academy's resources, his power level skyrocketed, leaving everyone else in the dust. So, With this urgent deadline looming over him, Cornlock doesn't head for the city. Instead, he sprints deep into the forest, ready to put his own plan into motion. His plan begins with a simple but specific action. He finds a certain type of mushroom in the forest and, with grim determination, crushes it in his hand. He's doing this because he knows, with his knowledge of the future, that his one and only chance to actually kill Park Seo is coming up very, very soon. And that chance is the game's very first tutorial quest, a mission to protect a broken-down carriage on its way to the academy. This is where the game truly begins, and this time Cornlock is going to hijack it. The scene cuts to the tutorial quest, where two academy security guards, Leon and Laura, have just finished off a monster. They turn to the person who helped them, impressed by his skills. And that skilled kid is, of course, Park Seo, who plays the part of the humble hero perfectly, just laughing off their praise. Just then, the coachman from the broken-down carriage calls out to them, announcing that the repairs are all finished and they're finally ready to get moving again. With the carriage fixed and the smaller monsters dealt with, the group gets ready to finally head towards the academy, thinking the danger is over. But just as they're about to leave, a horrifying, blood-curdling scream suddenly echoes from the darkness, stopping everyone dead in their tracks. And before they can even figure out what's going on, a massive, spiky projectile comes hurtling out of the night sky, aimed directly at the group. With no time to think, the female knight, Laura, acts on pure instinct, shoving her partner Leon out of the direct path of the attack. The massive spike smashes into the ground, right where he was standing just a moment before, sending out a powerful shockwave from the impact. Leon shouts her name in a panic, but Laura is already on her feet, sword drawn and ready to face whatever just tried to take them out. From the darkness emerges the true boss of this tutorial stage. The knights immediately recognize its cry. It's a powerful, rank 2 werewolf. The beast lets out a ferocious roar, its power radiating outwards as it prepares to launch its full-scale attack on the group. And this is when we cut back to Cornlock, hiding in the nearby bushes. He ran here to intercept the quest, but it seems he arrived just a little too late to prevent the werewolf's initial ambush. The werewolf moves with blinding speed, lunging forward and viciously swiping at Laura before she has a chance to mount a proper defense. She's taken down in an instant. Watching from the sidelines, Cornlock is hit with a wave of guilt, realizing that if he had just been a little bit faster, he could have saved her. With one guard down and the other in a state of panic, Park Seo takes command, telling Leon to get everyone to the carriage while he stays behind to buy them some time. Seo begins ushering the civilians onto the now-repaired carriage, telling them to go on ahead and that the guards will catch up with them later. But not all the guards are willing to retreat. One of them refuses to leave, yelling that she can't just abandon her partner, Leon. And her loyalty is about to be tested in the worst way possible, because Leon is currently face-to-face with the werewolf, weakly telling her to just run and save herself. With the lives of the survivors on the line, Park Seo finally steps forward, ready to confront the powerful rank 2 werewolf one-on-one. But Cornlock doesn't jump in to help just yet. Before he interferes, he needs to confirm something crucial. Is this version of Park Seo actually the noble hero from the original game? Or is he the same sociopathic, possessed player that Cornlock remembers from the future? This fight will be the ultimate test of Seo's true character. Facing off against the beast, even the normally stoic Park Seo can't help but be intimidated by its sheer size and power as it lets out a monstrous roar. The werewolf roars back, ready to tear him apart, making it crystal clear that this isn't going to be an easy fight. But just as the battle is about to begin, the loyal guard who refused to run away earlier leaps into action, yelling at Seo to get down as she prepares to join the fight. She leaps into the fray, jamming her polearm directly into the werewolf's mouth, barely managing to stop its powerful bite attack just inches from her face. Even she is shocked that her desperate block actually worked, a testament to just how overwhelmingly strong this monster really is. Her brave move buys them just enough time for Seo to recover, and he immediately joins her side, creating a defensive line as they prepare to take on the werewolf together. But Seo has no interest in teamwork. He tells the guard to step back, confidently declaring that he's going to handle this monster all by himself. And this is where Cornlock's game knowledge kicks in. He recognizes this isn't just some random guard. She's the second daughter of the powerful Arden family and the wielder of Odachi, one of the legendary Six Kings swords. Her name is Alicia Arden, and in the original game, she's supposed to be the most influential and important party member, a true named character at the center of the story. The reason Cornlock is so on edge is because he knows about a secret, hidden Easter egg in this tutorial quest, an event connected directly to Alicia Arden, a secret death event. He remembers with perfect clarity how the evil Park Seo from his past life took advantage of this hidden mechanic to kill Alicia right at the very beginning of the story. And as he watches the current fight unfold, Cornlock is struck with absolute horror as he realizes this supposedly heroic Park Seo is about to do the exact same thing. And just as Cornlock feared, Seo completely ignores the monster. In the heat of battle, he turns on his own ally, stabbing Alicia from behind and leaving her utterly shocked as to why he would attack her. With a creepy, unapologetic grin on his face, Seo gives the lamest excuse imaginable, claiming that his hand simply slipped because he was nervous. And that's all the proof Cornlock needs. Any hope that this timeline might be different is completely shattered. He knows for certain now that this isn't the hero of the game. It's the same evil, sociopathic Seo that he needs to kill. And now Cornlock understands Seo's entire evil plan. It's a classic exploit. By ensuring Alicia Arden dies during this quest, he gets to loot her legendary sword, the Odachi. But the plan doesn't stop there. After getting her sword, he can then use her death as a sob story to get into the party of her even more powerful sister, Linnea Arden. It's a perfectly sociopathic 2-for-1 deal. With Alicia poisoned and unable to fight back properly, all Seo has to do now is let the enraged werewolf move in to finish the job for him. But Alicia Arden isn't going down that easily. Despite being poisoned and betrayed, she musters her remaining strength, forcing herself to calm down and face the monster head-on. She pushes through the immense pain and confusion, forcing herself to focus her mind and senses for what might be the last fight of her life. And her resolve pays off. Tapping into her raw talent, she expertly begins to deflect the werewolf's ferocious barrage of attacks, proving exactly why she's a named character. She's not just blindly defending herself. She's using her family's signature technique, Alicia Arden's perfect footwork skills. This incredible skill allows her to effortlessly weave through the monster's rampage, and now she stands ready to face the werewolf head-on, despite her injuries. Watching from the sidelines, Park Seo realizes his plan is in trouble. Alicia is so talented that even while poisoned, she might actually kill the werewolf all by herself, completely derailing his evil scheme. With his carefully laid plans about to be ruined, Seo decides to take matters into his own hands. With a sinister grin, he readies his dagger, saying he simply can't let her win. He waits for her to be completely focused on the monster, and then he throws the same poison dagger from before, landing another direct, treacherous hit while her back is turned. Struck for a second time, Alicia finally understands what's happening. She turns back in shock and fury, realizing that the helpful kid wasn't an ally at all. He was her real enemy. And in that moment, she finally understands the grim truth. The first time he stabbed her wasn't a mistake or an accident. It was a deliberate attack from the very beginning. With this horrifying realization, she now finds herself caught between two deadly enemies, the monster lunging at her from the front and the traitor standing right behind her. But even now, poisoned, betrayed, and facing impossible odds, Alicia doesn't give up. She continues to fight back, parrying the monster's attacks with everything she has left. But in the end, her injuries and the poison are too much to overcome. The werewolf finally breaks through her defense and lands a brutal, fatal blow. Her desperate struggle comes to a violent and bloody end. As she lies dying on the ground, Park Seo calmly walks over to claim his prize. With her last breaths, Alicia can only look up at her betrayer and ask him why. With Alicia dead, Sahu celebrates his victory. With a manic grin, he holds up his prize, ecstatic that he's successfully acquired the legendary Odachi. He knows that the sword is technically useless to him right now, since it requires a special skill, but he's not even a little bit concerned. He'll just worry about that later. With his objective complete and another important character removed from the board, Sahu calmly turns to leave, ready for the next phase of his plan. With both Alicia and the werewolf now dead, the battle is finally over. Sahu stands alone amidst the carnage, his plan having gone off without a hitch. But his work isn't finished. He looks towards the remaining survivors, and a new, chilling thought crosses his mind. Killing these last few NPCs will give him even more EXP. With a terrifying, bloodthirsty grin, the devilish player decides to go for the perfect clear, ready to murder the very people he was supposed to protect. But just as he's about to make his move, something on his belt suddenly bursts into flames, catching the sociopathic player completely by surprise. However, that was just a distraction. The real trap comes from the Odachi itself. A strange, burning energy suddenly erupts from the cursed sword, causing him immense pain. The energy courses through his body as a burning, orange substance begins to bleed from his eyes. The all-powerful regressor has no idea what's happening, but he's just walked right into a trap. And now, we finally see Cornlock's genius plan unfold. It all started with those topanic mushrooms he crushed earlier, which are covered in a fine, sticky powder. This powder is not only a powerful irritant that can act as a poison, but it's also the favorite snack of the low-level monsters in this forest, like those horned rabbits. By making sure Sahu killed those powder-coated rabbits, Cornlock managed to contaminate the legendary Odachi, turning it against its new master. Now, Sahu is not only cursed by the sword, but he's also a walking magnet for every monster in the area, and he is absolutely furious. And now, Sahu understands the full horror of the trap. To every monster in this forest, he's no longer a terrifying player. He's a walking, talking piece of prime rib, perfectly marinated in their favorite seasoning. Immediately, even the weakest small fry monsters in the area begin to swarm him, seeing the overpowered regressor as nothing more than an easy and delicious meal. With Sahu completely distracted by the monster horde, Cornlock makes his move. He rushes over to Alicia's side and, to his immense relief, discovers that somehow she's still alive. Now that he's back in the past, Cornlock starts recalling all the red flags he missed the first time around. He remembers the Ration River flooding incident, a disaster where a dam broke during a quest, wiping an entire village off the map. With Sahu completely distracted, Cornlock gets to work, securing the kill and salvaging what he can from the monster's corpse. It's a grim task, but a necessary one. Eventually, Sahu deals with the monster swarm and finally confronts the mysterious interloper who's been pulling the strings. He looks down at Cornlock and furiously demands to know who he is. But instead of a fight, Sahu just scoffs at him. He's apparently been watching Cornlock use the Odachi he stole and is completely unimpressed, sarcastically mocking his pathetic performance with a legendary sword. But as Sahu gets a proper look at the man in front of him, his mocking expression completely vanishes, replaced by one of pure, dawning shock. He finally recognizes him, because the person standing before him is not the weak, disposable NPC that Sahu remembers from his past lives. This Cornlock is cold, determined, and ready to completely shatter his perfect timeline. Now face to face, the shock park Sahu asks Cornlock how he's even here. This immediately makes Cornlock suspicious, and he starts to wonder if this version of Sahu has lost his memories of the previous timeline. Seeing a potential weakness, Cornlock's fear is replaced by a sly confidence. He decides to test Sahu's knowledge, sarcastically pointing out that he's holding the legendary sword completely wrong. And Sahu's baffled reaction says it all. He's genuinely confused, with no idea what Cornlock is talking about. It seems this version of Park Sahu really might be a complete newbie after all. Seeing his opening, Cornlock doesn't waste a second. He immediately takes the offensive, throwing a handful of the crushed mushroom powder directly at Sehun's face. And it's a perfect hit. The powder splatters across Sehun's eyes before the newbie player even has a chance to process what's happening. The irritant immediately starts to burn, blinding him. The so-called hero is now completely stunned and furious, easily outplayed by Cornlock's clever trick. But Cornlock knows he can't get cocky. Even blinded, Park Sehun's physical stats are still way higher than his. He realizes he has no choice but to push himself to the absolute limit. And he's right to be cautious. Flying into a blind rage, Sehun swings his sword with all his might. He has zero technique, but his raw speed is still incredibly dangerous. But Cornlock is ready for it. Using his own experience and skill, he narrowly dodges the powerful but clumsy swing, and the real fight finally begins. Cornlock goes on the offensive, using a mental technique to keep himself sharp. He focuses on the sheer killing intent of his own attack, using the threat of death to stay alert. His focused assault completely overwhelms the blinded Sehun, forcing all of his panicked attention onto the small, deadly Fong in Cornlock's hand. And the technique works perfectly. He slips past Sehun's clumsy guard until the only thing the supposed hero can feel is the cold steel of the Fong pressed against his throat. With the so-called hero completely helpless and at his mercy, Cornlock leans in, all the pain and anger from his past life fueling his next move. He knows this is his one and only chance to prevent that horrifying future from ever happening. He raises the Fong, preparing to deliver the final blow. And without a single moment of hesitation, he plunges the blade down. The player of the academy has been killed. The blade sinks deep into Sehun's chest. The once invincible regressor, the self-proclaimed hero, can only scream in agony as his perfect timeline comes to a painful end. But Cornlock doesn't stop there. Fueled by the memories of his past life, he follows up the stab with a brutal, merciless punch, pouring all of his pent-up rage into the attack. And as Sehun lies on the ground, broken and crying, Cornlock looks down with cold, empty eyes and gives the blade one final, brutal twist to make sure the job is done. As Sehun takes his final breaths, Cornlock gives him one last, twisted thank you. He admits that it was only because of the hell Sehun put him through in the past life that he was able to become strong enough to win this time. And with those final words, Park Sehun's body dissolves into nothingness, completely and utterly erased from the world. Standing over the spot where the player died, Cornlock looks at the bloody Fong in his hand. He has become a killer, but he feels absolutely no regrets about what he's just done. Catching his breath after the intense fight, Cornlock reaffirms his decision. The reason he feels no remorse is because he knows he didn't just kill a person. He killed the seed of a monster, stopping the terrifying sociopath that Park Sehun was destined to become before he could ever begin. But killing the story's main character has massive consequences. The world system begins to glitch, flashing a critical error. With the player now dead, the main scenario is impossible to clear, and the system itself is forced to find a backup to fix the timeline he just shattered. With the main player dead, the world system identifies Cornlock as the variable that broke the timeline. It immediately begins to scan and analyze everything about him to find a solution. And after its analysis, the system makes a bold decision. It initiates a succession, upgrading Cornlock from a normal rank nobody to a rare rank subplayer and granting him the powerful Martial Master successor class. Cornlock can feel the change happening to his very being. He's now a sub-player, and he realizes with a jolt of excitement that this means he might finally get his own stat window, just like a real protagonist. With the immediate threat of Sehun dealt with, Cornlock's first priority is the fallen heroine, Alicia Arden. He rushes to her side to check her condition. She's in really bad shape, barely able to speak, and her vision is completely gone. But this is where Cornlock's pro-gamer knowledge shines. He's able to list off all her symptoms perfectly, immediately identifying the rare peacock tree frog's poison as the cause. He knows this specific poison is incredibly hard to craft this early in the game without a proper system. Cornlock realizes Alicia only survived because Sihu's crafting skill was too low to make a deadlier version. While it's a huge relief that she's alive, he knows the poison is still a major threat. He quickly pulls the cursed fong out of her wound, knowing he needs to stop the bleeding and detoxify her immediately. He confidently begins the treatment, reassuring the panicked Alicia that he's a master at this. All that time he spent memorizing every detail of the game is finally about to pay off in a big way. He knows the detoxification process is going to be excruciatingly painful, and he's worried she might bite her own tongue off in agony. He quickly tries to find something for her to bite down on, but in the heat of the moment, with nothing else available, he makes a quick, decisive, and frankly, pretty insane choice. He shoved his own arm into her mouth, telling her to bite down on it to endure the pain. It's a hardcore solution, but an effective one. As Alicia bites down, Cornlock grits his own teeth through the immense pain, encouraging her to hang in there and bite as hard as she needs to. And in this moment of shared agony, he reflects on his new reality. He doesn't know why he was sent back 3 years into the past, but he knows what he did when he arrived. He killed a player. And right here is the first tangible result of that decision. Alicia Arden, the person who was supposed to die in this tutorial, the woman he saw get murdered in his past life, is right here, alive and fighting, all because of him. After the intense fight and the life-saving first aid, Cornlock finally sits down amongst the monster corpses, completely and utterly exhausted. He doesn't know what the future will hold, but he knows one thing for sure. He saved a person who was supposed to die. And for now, that's enough. With the immediate danger finally over, he sets up a camp for the night, giving both himself and the recovering Alicia a much-needed chance to rest. As Alicia rests uneasily by the fire, Cornlock works through the night, using his extensive game knowledge to brew the specific antidote needed for the rare poison. He reassures her that everything will be okay, and even in her pain, delirious state, Alicia seems to understand, weakly murmuring the words, "Mr. Savior." Gathering what little strength she has, she asks for the name of the man who risked everything to save her, officially beginning their new journey together. But when she asks for his name, Cornlock coldly shuts her down, simply telling her that she doesn't need to know who he is. He tells her to get some rest, deciding that from this point forward, he needs to operate from the shadows. The less people know about his actions, the better. With the immediate crisis over, he begins to lay out his new master plan. He knows that the story of heroic legend of Arhin is supposed to be all about the hero, and the game's plot is simple. The player is supposed to enter the academy, solve a bunch of dangerous incidents, get super strong, and ultimately become the hero who saves the world. To do this, the hero has to fight their way through countless villains before finally taking on the final boss at the very end of the main scenario. And this is the key to his entire plan. The only reason the evil, sociopathic Sihu from his past life even bothered with the main story was because he knew that if the final boss wasn't defeated, the entire world would be destroyed, taking him along with it. But this creates a huge new problem. The player who was destined to follow that path and save the world is now dead. So who's going to take on that responsibility? The answer is obvious. As the new sub-player and the martial master's successor, the burden now falls entirely on Cornlock's shoulders. He knows he's the one who has to do it, but he's not exactly thrilled with the terms of his promotion. He complains to the system that if it's going to force him into the hero's role, the least it could do is give him the proper tools to do the job right. And the system's response is basically a huge middle finger. It hits him with a wall of permission-denied errors, locking him out of the stat window, the inventory, and all the other convenient functions a player should have. So, despite his new fancy title, nothing has really changed. He got his hopes up about finally getting a stat window, but he's still stuck as a regular guy with no system support. But he's not one to give up. He realizes that just relying on his future memories won't be enough. If the system won't help him, then he'll have to get stronger by using factors that exist completely outside of it. And so, the story jumps forward. For 3 long years, Cornlock pushed himself to the absolute limit, declaring that he is no longer just some normal, disposable extra. He's honed his talents and learned to harness the world's power in ways that don't require a system, mastering techniques he never could have used before. Through his relentless effort, he has transformed himself from a weak side character into a truly powerful warrior, finally ready to face the future he fought so hard to change. And all of his intense, desperate training has paid off. He confirms to himself that his new power works perfectly, a result born from his absolute desperation to survive. His new strength comes from a unique source. In his past life, the only type of magic he ever managed to learn was rune magic, ancient, powerful letters that hold their own magical properties. Specifically, he mastered a branch of this magic known as the Runes of the Three Commandments, a powerful system built on the core concepts of duty, restraint, and oaths. These three runes aren't just simple spells. They are representations of the most powerful and fundamental laws of this world, the very source of superhuman strength. And Korenlaka's insane plan to get strong is to physically inscribe all three of these world-bending laws directly onto his own body, starting with the first one. He endures the excruciating pain as the ancient letters are literally burned into his skin. The first of the three commandments he takes upon himself is the Rune of Duty. The way this rune works is simple. It grants the user power every time they honor a self-imposed oath or duty. For example, he could swear a simple duty like never eating chicken. But there's a catch. The easier the duty, the smaller the reward. To get a real, significant power boost, the user has to make a much more demanding and difficult promise. And Korenlak isn't messing around. He knows he needs to make a promise that will truly challenge him. So his first self-imposed duty is a big one. He swears that from now on, he will never turn a blind eye to the misfortunes of good people. The system accepts his oath. As a reward for his duty, his stats will now rise every time he clears a quest. But if he ever fails to help someone in need, he'll suffer a harsh penalty. But he's not done yet. He immediately prepares to inscribe the second of the three commandments onto his body, the Rune of Restraint. And for this rune, he places a massive handicap on himself. He swears an oath that he will no longer be able to perceive spirits, completely cutting himself off from a major source of the world's power. Now, swearing off spirits is a massive handicap because this entire world is filled with ghosts, elementals, and other powerful astral beings that don't have physical forms. However, Korenlak is exploiting a key loophole in the game's logic. Spirits can only affect people who are able to perceive them. If you can't see them, their magic and attacks can't touch you. And this is the huge payoff for his self-imposed handicap. In exchange for becoming completely immune to all spiritual attacks, he gained a massive 50% boost to his hit rate against all physical enemies, turning him into a specialized anti-physical fighter. So, by sacrificing his ability to perceive spirits, he's cleverly turned that penalty into a perfect protective shield, making himself completely immune to every astral being in the world. With the first two commandments active, it's now time for him to inscribe the third and final rune, the Rune of Oath. But this last one is on a whole other level. The Rune of Oath is so incredibly powerful and carries such an immense risk that neither he nor the sociopathic Park Seo ever dared to use it in their previous life. But Korenlak is willing to take this insane risk for one simple reason. He knows that even the all-powerful Park Seo, who used every cheat the system had to offer, still failed in the end. If the system's path leads to ruin, then he has nothing to lose by forging his own. And so, for his final and most powerful commandment, he makes the most demanding and ambitious oath possible. He swears on his very being that he will be the one to save this world. With this ultimate oath now made, the ritual is finished. The three commandments, duty, restraint, and oath, are now fully inscribed on his body, and Korenlaka's new journey as the world's hidden protector has truly begun. A system window appears, making it official. The three commandments are now fully applied to Korenlak, the new subplayer. But this incredible power comes with a final, terrifying warning. If he ever fails to uphold the oaths he has made, the penalty is not a simple stat reduction. Failure will result in one thing and one thing only: his own inevitable and absolute death. The story then cuts back to the person at the center of that whole incident, Alicia Arden, as her eyes slowly begin to flutter open. She wakes up in a comfortable but unfamiliar bed, completely confused and disoriented, with no idea where she is or how much time has passed. The memories of the betrayal and her injuries suddenly come rushing back. She jolts upright in a panic, only to be greeted by a nurse, realizing she's been brought somewhere safe to recover. The nurse calms her down, explaining that she's safe now and is currently recovering in the Merkaba City Emergency Hospital. But Alicia's first thought isn't about her own recovery. It's about the man who saved her. She desperately asks where he is, only to be told that her mysterious guardian has already left without a word. Shocked that he would just disappear, she ignores the nurse's warnings about her injuries and immediately starts looking for her things, determined to find the man who saved her life. She doesn't have to look far. Sitting on the table next to her bed is a worn-out satchel. She immediately realizes that it must have been left behind by her savior. She picks it up and notices that the strap is still stained with blood, confirming that it belonged to the man who fought so desperately to save her. With the only clue she has now in her hand, a fire is lit in her eyes. She calls out to the nurse, ready to start her investigation and find the man she owes her life to. The story then jumps forward 3 days after the tutorial quest, to the day of the official entrance ceremony for the prestigious Merkaba Academy. Meanwhile, Alicia is recovering well back at the hospital. She's already feeling good enough to start demanding candy, although the nurse is keeping her on a strict stew diet for now. Korenlock also arrives at the academy for the ceremony. But as he's looking for his student ID to get inside, he finds something else in his wallet that he definitely wasn't expecting. Rummaging through his things, the unexpected item he finds is a letter. He's completely sure he didn't put it there himself, leaving him totally confused. He opens it and finds a heartfelt letter from his mother, telling him how proud she is and encouraging him to become a great man who protects others. He's touched by the gesture, realizing she must have secretly slipped it into his wallet before he left. It's a poignant reminder that the original Korenlock wasn't a regressor or a villain, but just a normal and frankly incompetent kid. Because even this incompetent character had a family. Korenlock remembers how strange and awkward he acted when he first possessed this body, but they never treated him any differently. They accepted him unconditionally. And because of their kindness and warmth, over time, he grew to genuinely love his new family, and by extension, this entire world. And that, he realizes, is the fundamental difference between him and Park Seho. To Seho, this world was just a game filled with disposable NPCs. But for Korenlock, it's become his home, and it's something he's willing to fight for. The story then cuts to the first day of the academy, as new students begin to arrive at a massive and impressive train station. The platform is packed with a huge crowd of first-year students, all buzzing with excitement as they take in the incredible sights of the famous Merkaba Academy for the first time. A friendly upperclassman or guide waves to the new arrivals, cheerfully welcoming the new students and telling them where to gather to begin their first day. While the other students are looking around, the friendly guide spots Korenlock. She cheerfully strikes up a conversation, and he introduces himself. And we immediately learn that she's a bit of an oddball, because the very first thing she does is offer our main character a single, freshly cooked potato. Following this rather strange introduction, the new students are guided onto a tram that begins to take them from the station to the main academy campus. As she points out the various academy buildings, we get a massive, shocking reveal. This friendly, potato-loving guide is none other than Mariette Dunaleff. That's right, the very same woman who was destined to become the first stage's final boss. In this timeline, she's a beloved and talented second-year student, living a perfect, happy life. But Korenlock knows the truth. Thanks to his memories of the future, he knows that this cheerful, kind girl is destined to suffer through unimaginable misfortunes and fall into the depths of despair. and he knows exactly what that despair is meant to turn her into. This kind, cheerful girl is destined to become the final, terrifying boss of the game's entire first act. But back in the present, she's not a monster. She's just an eccentric upperclassman, cheerfully telling all the new students to take a potato and a sweet potato as a welcome gift. She gives them all a bright, friendly wave goodbye, completely and blissfully unaware of the dark and tragic future that our main character knows is waiting for her. The new students are all led into the academy's main hall, a massive and incredibly ornate room where the entrance ceremony is scheduled to begin. Suddenly, a huge and complex magic circle begins to glow on the ceiling as the Academy prepares to activate its famous space expansion magic. The spell creates an invisible field, separating all the students from each other. But for some reason, a large open space is cleared directly around Cornlock, putting him right in the center of everyone's attention. As all the other students are sent tumbling and panicking through the magical space, a loud, booming voice suddenly scolds them for being so easily flustered. But while everyone else is freaking out, Cornlock is completely unfazed. He recognizes the voice of an instructor named Hamin and knows from his past life that this whole ceremony is just a surprise boot camp. The instructor then begins his welcome speech, explaining that the Academy's purpose is to train superhumans who can wield aura and mana in the endless battle against the world's greatest threat, the evil tribe. And the number one place in the entire world responsible for training these powerful superhuman warriors is, of course, the Merkaba Academy. With the history lesson concluded, a new figure steps into the spotlight to formally begin the welcome ceremony for the new students. He introduces himself as the impossibly cool Professor Fermac Damon of the Night Faculty, the man in charge of this year's welcome ceremony. As the students wait, a new, arrogant-looking character starts running his mouth, acting like he's a big shot who knows everything there is to know about the Academy. And Professor Damon is having none of it. He's annoyed by all the cocky attitudes and decides it's time to shut them up and see what these so-called elites are actually capable of. With that, the practical test begins. The students are suddenly separated and moved onto glowing magical platforms, officially kicking off the welcome ceremony's boot camp. Professor Damon then explains the first part of the test. A series of holographic panels appear, displaying each new student's overall power rank, and they are all instructed to go stand in front of their assigned number. And when Cornlock's rank is revealed, it's about as pathetic as you can get. With rock-bottom aura, mana, and ability scores, he's slapped with an overall grade of 6th rank, basically the bottom of the barrel. But while most students would be humiliated by this public ranking, Cornlock is just bored. He already knew his starting stats were complete garbage, and he's not about to let some numbers on a screen define his true potential. He quickly does the math and realizes that with 400 new students, his pathetic rank officially places him in the bottom 1% of the entire class. Soon enough, all the students have been sorted by their power level, from the highest-ranked elites down to the bottom-tier scrubs like Cornlock. With everyone now in their place, Professor Damon addresses them one last time. With a sinister grin, he wishes them all good luck in battle. Before the battle kicks off, we get a quick look at some of the other notable students in the freshman class. First up is Yule, a druid from Aveloin. Next, we have the cool and stoic mercenary of sword control, Drawn Warsky. And rounding out the trio is the golem sorcerer, the freckle-faced genius Chronoliden. These are the famous named characters of the freshman class. And at the very top of the food chain, we have the one and only first-ranked student. Her name is Waran, and she holds the absolutely terrifying title of the Heavenly Yaksha. And it seems her reputation precedes her, because even one of the professors is shocked that someone like her was allowed to enroll, wondering what the Academy's director could possibly be thinking. Meanwhile, the professors overseeing the ceremony are having a debate. One of them complains that even testing the 6th ranks is a waste of time and suggests they just kick out all the incompetent scrubs right now. But a much scarier-looking instructor immediately shuts him down. She reminds him that the Academy's director was very clear. Every student, regardless of their starting rank, deserves a chance to prove themselves. Completely intimidated, the professor has no choice but to agree. And with that, the instructor nervously snaps his fingers, officially beginning the battle portion of the welcome ceremony. The test is simple and brutal. The students are teleported into an empty space, and to give them a fighting chance, the academy provides each of them with a weapon case. A voice announces the rules. In 30 seconds, a swarm of monsters will appear. The students had to fight based on their own level. Having been through this before, Cornlock is completely unfazed. The lower-ranked students, like those in the 5th and 6th ranks, are all given a choice of standard-issue weapons. Cornlock casually browses the selection, ready to make his choice. Using his knowledge of how people panic, Cornlock knows that most of the other low-rankers won't think strategically. They'll just grab the most basic and familiar weapon they can find, which will almost certainly be a sword. He knows this with such certainty because he made the exact same panicked mistake in his previous life. As the countdown for the monster summon begins, he remembers his own failure from back then. And the monsters that these unprepared students will have to face are finally revealed. A pack of vicious 5th-ranked shorthounds. As the hounds growl, ready to attack, Cornlock considers the other students' weapon choice. He understands why they all grabbed his sword. It's the classic, cool-looking hero weapon. But he also knows the classic martial arts saying, a sword takes 10,000 days to master. For an inexperienced newbie in a timed survival test, it's the worst possible choice. So, as the countdown hits 1 and the test officially begins, Cornlock knows what he has to do. If a sword is the hardest weapon to use, then the answer for an easy victory is simple. He chooses the weapon that's the easiest to learn, but still incredibly effective, the weapon that's perfect for a quick and decisive victory, a spear. And he doesn't waste a single second. With perfect form, he hurls the spear like a javelin, sending it flying toward the monster pack with deadly speed and precision. And it's a perfect one-shot kill. The spear tears straight through the first hound, instantly turning the 5th-ranked monster into nothing but digital dust. With one hound down, Cornlock calmly stands his ground, pointing to the sky as he offers a cold and sarcastic apology to the remaining monsters. And they quickly find out why he's apologizing. Before they can even get close, massive beams of energy rain down from above, wiping out the rest of the pack in an instant. 2 enemies drop to the ground instantly, and the guy just smirks, saying he's basically a pro at killing their kind. He casually checks his time and seems almost disappointed that it took him a whole 12 seconds to clear the wave. The standards he holds himself to now are on a completely different level. He thinks back to his past life, where he was so weak that he got eliminated in this very first test. But this time, things are completely different. With a confident smirk, he declares that he's ready to keep grinding until he ranks up. He looks to the sky and boldly calls for the next wave to begin. Meanwhile, the rest of the 5th and 6th ranked students, the ones who all grab swords, are getting absolutely demolished by the very same monsters Cornlock just wiped out. But back in Cornlock's testing area, it's completely silent. He hits the 5-minute mark, and he's just been left standing there with nothing to do. He starts to get annoyed, wondering why the next wave he called for never came. He even begins to think that his insane clear speed might have actually broken the test system. Meanwhile, in the observation room, the professors are watching the new recruits get destroyed. One of them is particularly unimpressed, complaining about how weak the students are and bragging about his own glory days. He's so disgusted with the 5th ranks that he says there's no point in even watching the 6th ranks. But just as he's about to write them all off, something on one of the monitors catches his eye. It's Cornlock's test. But instead of fighting for his life, he's just floating there, yawning, looking completely bored. The professor is totally baffled, wondering if the system messed up and forgot to summon his monsters. Finally, after a long wait, a new wave of monsters is summoned for Cornlock. But instead of leveling up to the next rank, the system just sends in the exact same weak hounds as before, leaving him completely confused. Meanwhile, the professors are still watching the other low-ranked students, who are getting absolutely thrashed by these very same monsters that Cornlock considers to be a waste of his time. Eventually, one of the professors spots the first student to actually pass the test. He's impressed that they cleared it in just over 7 minutes, having no idea that Cornlock did the same thing in 12 seconds on his first try. The professor keeps watching the results come in, wondering why the low rankers are taking so long. But then his attention drifts back to that one strange monitor that's been bugging him. And he sees Cornlock is still just chilling, waving at the observation camera like he's on vacation. The professor completely freaks out, yelling that the monster summoning for this one student must be totally broken. But the arrogant professor refuses to believe the Academy's magic could ever be flawed. He comes to the only conclusion his elitist brain can manage. The system isn't broken, it's just refusing to summon monsters for a student who is obviously too pathetic to even be worth testing. But the other professor isn't buying it. He calls his colleague out, pointing out that he didn't actually see the summoning fail. He just assumed it did because the student is a low ranker. And he's right to be suspicious, because monsters are being summoned for Cornlock. The problem is, the system is so broken by his clear speed that it just keeps sending the same pathetic hounds, leaving him incredibly frustrated. He finally loses all patience with the boring, repetitive test. He grabs a handful of spears and screams in rage, ready to show them what a real fight looks like. Done playing around, Cornlock unleashes his power, and the entire new wave of hounds is instantly and completely annihilated. His new clear time flashes on the screen, a mind-blowing 7.3 seconds. The two professors who were just calling him a pathetic scrub are now left completely and utterly speechless. They're so shocked by what they're seeing that they have to call over Professor Damon for a second opinion, unable to believe that a 6th-ranked student just set such an impossible record. Professor Damon, ever the professional, starts gathering data to understand the situation. He asks for the fastest clear time among the much stronger 3rd and 4th-ranked students, and learns that it was a sluggish 3.5 minutes. This new information just makes the arrogant professor even more embarrassed, as he's forced to eat his words after trashing the student who just set an unbelievable new Academy record. Professor Damon tries to make sense of it all. He theorizes that since the student is so skilled with a spear, he must be the son of a hunter. It's the only logical explanation he can come up with for such an impossible performance. Deciding to test their theory, the professors manually override the system and send in a much tougher opponent for Cornlock, a powerful 4th-rank monster. And he clears it in a jaw-dropping 3.7 seconds. The arrogant professor absolutely loses his mind, as the proof of his victory is unceremoniously dumped at his feet. Now completely invested in this anomaly, the professors throw everything they've got at him. They immediately summon a formidable 3rd-rank owlbear, a monster that even the top students would have a hard time fighting. The powerful owlbear immediately goes on the offensive, throwing a massive swipe that could level a building, but Cornlock easily dodges out of the way. He continues to use his superior agility and footwork, gracefully weaving through the monster's powerful but predictable attacks. And after expertly evading another heavy blow, he finally sees his opening and prepares to launch a powerful counterattack of his own. And now, for the first time, he unleashes the power he's been cultivating for 3 years. He activates one of his inscribed runes, the fire rune, Kinas. In an instant, his standard-issue spear is engulfed in a roaring, uncontrollable inferno, the sheer force of the magic radiating through the entire arena. And back in the observation room, the professors are completely losing their minds. They recognize the incredibly rare and powerful magic he's using. It's rune magic, something a first-year student should never be able to wield. Even the cool and collected Professor Damon is intrigued now, recognizing the ancient and powerful rune magic being used by a mere first year. Back in the arena, the fiery attack slams directly into the owlbear, completely engulfing the massive 3rd-rank monster in a raging inferno. But Cornlock can tell right away that despite the incredible spectacle, his powerful fire attack didn't actually do that much damage. This fight is far from over. The fire attack may not have done much physical damage, but that was never the real point of the spell. He knows that all the fire needed to do was one simple thing: temporarily blind the monster and block its vision. Because with the owlbear blinded by the flames for even a second, that's all the opening Cornlock needs to get above it and plunge his spear down for the fatal blow. Back in the observation room, the professors are completely floored. They admit that Cornlock is definitely not a mere 6th rank and are actually disappointed that the monster test doesn't go any higher. One of the professors gets an idea, excited to see how this mysterious and talented student will handle a completely different type of opponent: evil spirits. And so, the next phase of the test begins as they summon a 5th rank evil spirit into his arena, ready to test his spiritual power. But the professors are about to be very confused. Cornlock can tell that something was definitely summoned into the arena with him, but because of his rune, he is completely unable to see or hear it. This is the major drawback of the restraint commandment he inscribed on himself. He is now physically incapable of sensing or interfering with any kind of soul, ghost, or spirit. But this is exactly what Cornlock was counting on. He calmly closes his eyes, ready to test his ultimate theory. If he can't interfere with the spirit, then the spirit shouldn't be able to interfere with him either. So he just stands there perfectly still, giving the invisible evil spirit a full minute to try and land a single hit on him, patiently counting down the seconds. And after 60 seconds of absolutely nothing happening, his theory is confirmed. His restraint commandment is working perfectly, making him completely immune to the spirit's attacks. With his new power now verified, he sees no reason to continue this boring test. So he simply raises his hand and, to the absolute shock of the professors, casually gives up. And so his final scores are posted for all to see. In the monster test, he set a new, unbeatable record for every single rank. And in the spirit test, he simply withdrew, getting himself disqualified. He returns to the main hall and, with a cheeky grin, cheerfully tells the stunned professor good work, as if nothing out of the ordinary just happened. The professor who had completely written him off is now left utterly speechless. All of his arrogance is gone, replaced by pure confusion as he wonders just who this mysterious, unpredictable kid really is. With the entrance exam officially over, the students are gathered back in the main hall, buzzing with conversation as they naturally begin to form cliques based on their newly assigned ranks. The students immediately start comparing their results. A 4th-ranked student is disappointed in his performance, while another student proudly boasts about achieving the impressive 3rd rank. And this is when we meet another notable student, the arrogant and muscular Jaeger Hinchpeter, who looks completely unimpressed with everyone else's performance. And Cornlock recognizes this guy immediately. From his memories of the past life, he knows that Jaeger is the arrogant delinquent who's supposed to start a fight with the main character on the very first day. And he also remembers exactly how that fight ended. The sociopathic Park Seho from the previous timeline simply got annoyed with Jaeger's attitude and murdered him in cold blood. Thinking back on it now, Cornlock realizes that while Jaeger is an arrogant punk, he's really just a dumb kid who didn't deserve to die, which only further proves what an absolute lunatic the old Seho really was. His attention then turns to another student, a kid with glasses who is being mocked for his low rank. But it seems this student might have lost the test on purpose. And Cornlock recognizes him too. This is Lark, a character who, in the previous timeline, was consumed by an inferiority complex and was ultimately killed by Seho for running his mouth. But before any of the inevitable first-day drama can kick off, a voice comes over the announcement system, gathering all the students' attention as the official ceremony resumes. The person on the microphone is then revealed to be the big boss of the entire academy, the director himself, Ryu Kazar. He begins his welcome speech, stating that all of them have gathered at this elite academy for one simple reason: to become strong. He continues, acknowledging that while some of the new students are already powerful, others still have a very long way to go, a clear reference to the huge gap in the ranking test results. He gives the students one final piece of advice, telling them that while the academy will guide their first step, the rest of the long journey to find their own path is entirely up to them. With a warm and encouraging smile, the director wishes them all a good day, officially bringing the long and chaotic welcome ceremony to a close. And with that, the students all begin to disperse from the main hall, ready to begin their new and undoubtedly eventful lives at the Merkaba Academy. As the students find their way around, the arrogant Jaeger starts loudly boasting to anyone who will listen about his impressive third rank. He then spots a quiet, weaker-looking student to use as his punching bag. He stomps right over to the student, who we know as Lark, and aggressively demands to know his rank. The intimidated Lark can only stammer that he's a lowly 5th rank. And just like that, the bullying begins. Jaeger starts laughing and relentlessly mocking Lark for being pathetic enough to fail the very first test, all while Korenlock watches the familiar scene unfold from a distance. But this time, Korenlock decides he's not going to just stand by and watch. He walks right up to the confrontation, throws a friendly arm around the bully Jaeger, and completely derails the fight before it can even start. Instead of a threat, he uses a charm offensive. He starts complimenting Jaeger's tattoo, showing off his knowledge by explaining its practical purpose for identifying his blood type in an emergency. And the plan works perfectly. The simple-minded Jaeger, who is secretly a big mama's boy, is completely won over by the flattery. He totally forgets about bullying Lark and starts proudly telling Korenlock all about his tattoo artist mom. He continues to play the part of a friendly and interested new acquaintance, asking more questions and acting impressed, even though he already knows everything there is to know about Jaeger. He knows all of this because he remembers it from his past life. After Jaeger was killed by Park Sahu, his heartbroken mother came to the academy, desperately searching for her missing son. And it was then that she tearfully explained the real story behind his tattoos, that they weren't just for show, but were something she had done out of pure love and worry for her son's safety at the dangerous academy. As Jaeger proudly shows off his other tattoos, Korenlock feigns excitement, knowing that each one is just a symbol of his mother's love and worry for her son. With the ice now completely broken, the two formally introduce themselves. And just like that, the arrogant delinquent who was supposed to be a future victim is now Korenlock's new friend. But Korenlock hasn't forgotten about the original target of the bullying. He turns his attention to the startled Lark and kindly brings him into the conversation as well. And it seems Korenlock's clever and kind intervention hasn't gone unnoticed. From a distance, another student has been quietly watching the entire scene unfold, and she is incredibly impressed. She thinks to herself how amazing it was that he so naturally and skillfully stepped in to save a fellow student from being bullied. Based on his selfless actions, she comes to a simple conclusion. This new student, Korenlock, seems like a genuinely good person. But of course, his kindness was all part of a calculated plan. He made sure to leave a good first impression on Lark, because he knows from his past life that Lark possesses the incredibly rare and useful memorize ability. With a sharp, predatory grin, Korenlock thinks to himself that he's finally found it. To his pro-gamer mind, Lark isn't just a new friend. He's a walking, talking, free skill book just waiting to be used. And as Korenlock is having this evil internal monologue, the girl watching from afar completely misreads the situation, thinking to herself how even his creepy, sociopathic smile is somehow pretty.